Hi everyone, this is Janet from Mixed Media Mama. I just want to come to you and show you my latest creation. It is a collaboration challenge by Tina Walker. She challenged all of us who wanted to join and do this to make or have a book and to do an A to Z collaboration challenge. We needed to use Stencilgirl stencils. That's it. However we made it, that's up to us. How I did it is that I took mixed media paper and I cut up in 26 letters because A to Z. I took 26 pieces of mixed media paper because I knew I wanted to have mixed media on it, paints and inks and things like that. And I bound it and with a new method that I've never tried, and it came out like this. So there are some things that I even took it one step further. The 5 things that I used outside of the stencils, the 5 things that I used was a gel plate, any of the paints that I had on hand, ordinary paper, scrapbooking paper, just scraps basically. I had a box full of them. Distress oxides and pens and pencils. Those were the 5 things that I use. I allowed myself. And when I do that, seems like things become very simpler when I just limit myself to certain things I use, because then I figure out what all of the other ways I can incorporate distress oxides with stencils and pens and pencils and paints and all these things. And it just turned out to be challenging. It turned out to be fun. It turned out to be, on certain pages it was easy, on other pages I wanted to do a different technique. I had so much fun on this, and I want to thank you, Tina, for asking us to do this, because this was great. I needed to do this. It took me probably a lot longer than I thought, but I really wanted to just really use these types and these standards, these mediums all together. So I want to show you here. I just put the whole book together and I wrapped it up with a piece of lace and then a sari silk. So let's just go ahead and go with that and pull this back. And my first thing was, and I'll show you one of my first lessons as I come through this book, is the first thing is I put all the paints with 4 stencils. When I used the jelly plate, I painted the background, all the backgrounds the same, using certain paints, a color scheme. And you'll see this color scheme like the blue, greens, whites, and tans, and kind of a browns in there as the background. And then I just layered upon that. So you can see as the background, it is all from the jelly plate. The 4 that I used, I will also list in the my description below, or I'll add it to a link to my channel. And then I just layered distress oxides. I always wanted to distress oxides. And then another thing that I used was waxes. Finnabar waxes was the other 5th thing. Sorry, I knew I had missed something. So I wanted to just incorporate all of that. So obviously you can tell that I use a Stencilgirl stencil on this, but the quote is, "Life loves to be taken by the lapel and told, 'I'm with you, kid. Let's go all together.'" And that's by Maya Angelou. So my A is all together. And you can kind of tell that I use the Finnabar waxes right here through a Stencilgirl stencil. I believe that's a Seth Apter stencil. So let's go ahead. So on B, I used this beautiful stencil and brought in through with distress oxides, and it just really framed the face. And then of course I penned and I penciled it. But then I also wanted to use the same another template, and I brought, and if you can kind of see the shimmer of this next template on top, and that was used with Finnabar waxes. So that's kind of the thing that or at least the process that I used is because I had the gel plate print, and then I used a template, many templates on top of that, and then with the other products. So that's really kind of what I did. And you know, that you notice on the A, I just wrote it in. I wrote the quote in. But this one, I thought, well, maybe I'll just take some vintage scrapbook paper or vintage. I think this one was a ledger. And I wrote the quote out on this. However, I then stepped back and I realized that I really didn't like how that look was, but by the time I thought of it, it was already completed, so I just left it. I wasn't going to bring it back up and try to redo it, but that is the great thing of processing and working through these challenges, because we learn as we go. We're no any different than anybody else. So we delight in the beauty, and that's B, of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty. And of course, that again is by Maya Angelou. So then I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to, instead of putting those little pieces of paper on, I'm going to put a tag on each for each page. So that's what I did for the rest of the alphabet. I had these tags and I wrote the quote out on that tag so it would not take away of any of the looks of the page itself. So this one is C, and of course you can kind of see the paper, the pencil, and back here, I don't know if you can kind of see all of these little white circles. Maribel Shaw just showed on one of her vlogs that a new technique, and I used those pieces from a magazine. So that is considered paper, both of these, and then of course the pen. And the quote is on C. It says, be more concerned with your character than your reputation, because character is what you are and reputation is what others think of you. And that is from John Wooden. So then I just keep on going. So D, I'm not going to explain a lot of everything, but I just wanted to kind of show you the whole process. And so D is, of course, there you can see I took the pen with one of the stencils and paper and then paints. And not every one I use Finnabar waxes or distress oxides. This one I use the distress oxide and then pens. I just limited myself to those 5 things, and then I can incorporate them as I go. So this one was do the best you can until you know better. When you know better, you do better. And again, that's Maya Angelou. I know you kind of see, but she is such a wonderful lady. I just so admired her. So that was D. So E, and I just love, I just have so many favorites in this book. E is, you alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anybody. And again, Maya Angelou. I know you see a theme here about Maya, but she just is a great lady. I just really admire a lot of her quotes and she's such a wise lady. But here again, you can kind of see a little bit of shimmer, and that is the Finnabar waxes. And then I just took the pens, the white pens, and I just out. And these are pieces of paper right here, just some scraps I had in my stash basically, and I just put stencils on top. So all right, that was E. And so then this next one is there we go, we skipped one. I thought we did. Sometimes that happens when my pages stick together. So this one, there again, it's just a lot of distressed oxides, and I use 2 or 3 that you can kind of see. You can kind of see just a little bit of a print here. And this one is F. My life isn't full in spite of my hardships. It's full because of them. And this is G. Always give without remembering and always receive without forgetting. And that's by Brian Tracy. And I really enjoy this one because the numbers here, if you can see them, they are in the Finnebar waxes. And then all of these circles are the Distress Oxide, and that's through the template. And I will have all of my templates that I use. I use pretty much every single one of them, and I have a lot. I had to fill up a basket full of all those templates to use, and I really try to use every single one of them, and I think I got that a job accomplished. So I will list all of that in the link below or in my description below. And I just wanted to keep on going here. This next one is H for humanity. All of our humanity is dependent upon recognizing the humanity in others. And that's from Archbishop Desmond Tutu. I just really, I thought it was really kind of interesting how the quotes came with the pages, because I did not make the page because of the quote or the quote because of the page. I just did the page, then found a really cool quote, wrote all the quotes down in alphabetical order, and some of them, like this one, really just turned out to be really very coordinating. I thought that was just a wonderful way and a wonderful thing how that worked out. So here's another one. This is Ignorance, I. Ignorance with love is better than wisdom without it. So that is just another, and you can really see the copper, and that really is just basically a city stencil right here. And with a lady who's just thinking, and paper and paper washi there. So I thought that was really neat. So this next one kind of gets into my abstractness. I can definitely tell that I was in a little bit more of an abstract. So I took these magazine pictures, and I just love these magazine pictures. And I thought I have to use them because I love the faces. They just went with all of the colors and everything. And so I thought that, and you can kind of see the Finnebar waxes in that corrugated lines. And like I said, I will let you know here. Oh, here is the quote. It says, "The snow goose needs not bathe to make itself white. Neither do you need to do anything but be yourself. Just be." So it's J for just. And here again, you can see I think this is Patty Carricker, or excuse me, Pam Carricker, her stencil, and that is what I used with Finnebar waxes, and of course pencils and stencils all throughout that too. So, and the quote is, "It's not the length of life, but the depth of it," and that's from Ralph Waldo Emerson. The next one is another favorite of mine. It's on K. It says, "Knowledge comes, but wisdom lingers," and that's from Alfred Lord Tennyson. But I just love this was just a piece of paper, a picture out of a magazine, and then I just really wanted to incorporate that. But I loved this stencil. I wanted to outline this beautiful butterfly, and it just really turned out to be sweet, nice, and you can kind of see the shimmer there. So this is another beautiful stencil. And so I just used scrap pieces of paper. And of course, I stenciled the Finnabar waxes on top here. And then, of course, then I took Distress Oxides and I just edged every page here. But I really, that was another thing that I used the Distress Oxides with, that I just really helped bring that background subtle, but or stand out, whichever one. And this one says, be happy in the moment. That's enough. Each moment is all we need, not more. And that is from Mother Teresa. So that is M. And this is kind of a 2-page layout, but each page has its own quote. So this is N, and it says, if one truly loves nature, one finds beauty everywhere. And that's from Vincent van Gogh. But this is where you can really see the layering of the Distress Oxides. And then I came back with a pen, the white pen, and of course the Finnabar waxes, and then I outlined. Each page is just really a really beautiful and unique layout. And it kind of reflects of what the moods that I was in. Like I said, it took me about a little over a month to do this, just because there were so many different steps, and I've never done this type of challenge before. So I was very excited and very happy, and I learned a ton. So this is, I believe this is O. Do not try to figure out what other people want to hear from you. Figure out what you have to say. It's one and only thing you have and to offer. So that was really, really neat, really sweet. So this is another one. I kind of did a different thing on it. It was, again, it's another 2-page layout. Obviously, I was in a 2-page layout thing. But I used a lot of scraps of scrap paper and some rice paper right here. And then, of course, I took a stencil and I put the waxes in, but waxes on top. But before I did that, and I'm going to try to show it to you, you can just vaguely see a little blue behind the 2 long pieces underneath here. The pink is the Finnabar waxes, but the blue is the Distress Oxide, and that is the new one of Tim Holtz. I believe that it looks like a bluebird type of egg blue, and it's just really, really kind of grounded that down, and it kind of matched with everything else. I was really happy that that took place. So this one is P for passion. There are some people who live in a dream world. There are some who face reality. Then there are some who turn one into the other. And this other one is Q. Like a queen, think like a queen. She is not afraid to fail. Failure is another stepping stone to greatness. And that's from Oprah. And this was just another, I had a lot of fun with this. This 2-page layout doesn't really, I didn't plan for it to coordinate or even have any type of relatability to each other, but it really turned out that way. First of all, there again, Mary Beth Shaw had a technique, and to use the old pieces of magazines, because I have all these magazines and what am I supposed to do with them? I really don't want to throw them away. So she showed this technique of just sanding a piece of down, and you can barely see this type, and it looks like a feather, it looks like a vein right there. And then I took these paper or rice paper leaves that I got, and I used a stencil, and I put Distress Oxide on top of the leaves, and it really turned out wonderful. I really like that. And of course the background is the same, but I also edged it with Distress Oxide. And then this other one was kind of the same, but I had this outline of a face, and I just put a template, or excuse me, a stencil in with Distress Oxide And then you can tell I use the Finnabar waxes just to outline or accent the eyes and the mouth. But this was really kind of a cool thing because I did do a Finnabar waxes for the hair underneath the leaves here. You can kind of see that. And then over here, but here is the same technique that Mary Beth Shaw was using. And I used that on another piece, and I just cut it out because I kind of wanted it to look like a turban type of a thing. And I used the same type of a technique on another piece with Seth Apter's stencil of his little mini 4x4, I believe. And I just thought it turned out wonderful. I was very, very pleased how that all turned out. So the quote on this one is resilience. Man never made any material as, let me start over. Man never made any material as resilient as the human spirit. And that's from Bernard Williams. And then this next one is surround yourself only with people who are going to take you higher. And that's from Oprah. So the next thing I have, I just wanted to really use different types. I had this beautiful stencil and I wanted to kind of showcase it. So I used a lot of Distress Oxides underneath, but I just loaded this page up with Finnabar waxes. So the quotes is T, talk to yourself like you would to someone you love. Talk to yourself like you would to someone you love. And that's Brene Brown. She has a lot of beautiful, I've read one of her books, and I just love how she speaks. And so the same thing happened on this page as it did on this page. And I just did a little bit different color scheme there. I just thought it really turned out well. I just love that. And so the quote is, the artist is no other than he who unlearned what he has learned in order to know himself. And that's from E.E. Cummings. The artist is no other than he who unlearned what he has learned in order to know himself. Oh, that's so powerful. And it's just, just wonderful. I've always collected quotes over my life, and I just have a book loaded, just basic notebook loaded with quotes. So I kind of went through there. I did look through the Brene Brown book to look, and I had a hard time choosing, really. So this page, it was really fun because there again, you can see these pieces of paper, just scrap pieces of paper, and of course the floral. That is, I am also a journal maker, so I have a lot of flowers. But then I thought, how can I tie this in? It just wasn't tying in. So I took this steampunk stencil. There again, I will have that linked in my description below. And I used the Distress Oxides, and you can kind of see, and then I went back and I outlined them with the white pen, and it really brought things to the forefront. I just really loved how that turned out. That was just such a neat way of how it turned out. And then the quote is, V for vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. And of course, Brene Brown. So, and then of course I kind of brought the same concept over into this other page, and it just kind of did the same thing. I had a lot more papers in here underneath, but you can barely see a lot of the original watercolor, a little original mixed media paper that I pulled from the gel plate. And then I just kept adding and layering, and I brought this up right here. I thought it just made a nice little visual texture there. And the quote on this is W. Wise women tuck godly wisdom into the words that they speak, even more into the words that they choose not to speak. And some of these have a author, and some of them are from old. I did not put the author down or the person who spoke it. So please forgive me for that. The next two, there again, is a double page layout, but each one of them is so unique because I wanted to tie them together, and I definitely wanted to use this beautiful, beautiful stencil. It's kind of a 6x6 stencil of Stencilgirl products. And I just loved it. And of course there I shaded in a lot with the Distress Oxide and the Finnibars. I used the Finnibar Copper, I believe, wax, and came back with pencils. And did the same thing on this. There's just extra pieces of paper and book plates, book paper. So the first one, the quote on here is for X. Now, X is always a hard one. And so I kind of fudged this time. It says, find the extraordinary inside the ordinary. And I underlined the X in the extraordinary. And that's by Mark Haddon. So I kind of cheated a little bit, but it's hard to find. And that was one that I had to go looking for. I couldn't, but it was so simple. It was so simple. And there again, it just, fit the leaf and the whole look of the page. I thought that was really interesting. So this is why. This page is why we became not a melting pot, but a beautiful mosaic. Different people, different beliefs, different yearnings, hopes and dreams. And that's from Jimmy Carter. Let me read that again. We became not a melting pot, but a beautiful mosaic. People, different beliefs, different yearnings, hopes and dreams. From Jimmy Carter. I thought that was very wise, very, very wise. And so last but not least is the Z. And I just brought in, it was kind of simple, but I loved this type. This was a 6x6 stencil, and also this was, but you can really see what that gel plate brought up with the background. I thought that was just a neat cover, back cover for Z. And this says, I shall grow old, but never lose life zest, because the road's last turn will be the best. So there it is, and I am going to, and each one of these get stuffed back into here, and I am going to put everything in my description box below. And I want to thank Tina very much. I had so much fun. I learned a lot of what to do, what not to do, and some certain things. And yes, I had to kind of redo some pages, but artists never tell those. So I just thank you very much and have a great day. Until next, bye.